Bippity boppity boo friends, we are back and we're ready to go. So play that music. Ari
Donny!
I've missed you.
I missed you. I missed our intro. That's so fun to see our intro.
I know, like the moment I saw it, I was just like, I've missed this so much.
Yes.
Oh, good evening, everyone. Welcome back to Restitching the Tapestry. It is Halloween. It's Samhain, October 31st. 2024. It's been about a month since we've done an episode. We took a much needed break, but we are back and we're refreshed. And we decided to doll up this evening, as you can tell. we wanted to go with witchy vibes. Ari, what made you decide to go with the Elphaba Wicked Witch of the West vibe?
So you said, oh, Ari, I'm gonna dress up like a witch. And I said, I need to witch up too. We need to be twin witches. And I said, what better witch than a Wicked Witch of the West?
I know, it's perfect. Your outfit, I'm obsessed with. You look like a chic fashionista Wicked Witch of the West.
I am obsessed with your outfit, the gothy witch vibes. I love it.
I'm like an early 2000s witch. I was just like, if there's like Evanescence is witchy, right? So I was just like, I'm gonna just I do have a breastplate on tonight too. And I am I did not think that the shirt would stretch over these D's, but it does. So this shirt's probably going to be stretched out from here on out, but it's for a good cause, damn it.
It's giving Charmed vibes. I love it.
Yes. The power of 3 will set us free.
Yay!
So who do we have in the chat tonight? We have Arpy. Hello, Arpy. I hope you're doing well. We have Lacey is here. Hello, Lacey, my dear. It's good to see you. Lacey's like, cheddars. Yes, absolutely.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. Oh my goodness. So I guess before we really get started tonight, let's share for everyone how we've been and what we've been up to. Ari, how have you been? And what have you been up to?
Oh my goodness. It's been a time for me. It's been a time. We took a break because I was having some issues. I'm not going to lie. I had some mental health issues, and I was in the hospital dealing with some medication stuff. I am better now. So that's how I've been.
Well, I'm glad that you're better now, and it's good to have you back. And I gotta say kudos too, because I feel like we've been on this long journey, being very transparent about our mental health. And I think it takes a lot of strength being transparent, especially with today's age where there's still a lot of, I think we were talking about this in the back room, there's still shame surrounding mental health, right? And the fact that sometimes we have to take time to grant ourselves the grace to do what we need to do for our mental health. People do for their physical health, why not their mental health too?
Yeah.
Right. So let's see. Tiffany Schmieder's here. Hello, my dear. It's good to see you.
Hello.
Lacey says, I'm sorry to hear that.
Oh, thank you. Sometimes you just got to work on your mental health. It's just like anything. Sometimes you need a little bit of a tune-up.
Yep. A little bit of a tune-up. I love that phrasing. Arpy loves our costumes, and Lacey is glad that you are okay now. Good.
Yeah.
So, what have I been up to? Dealing with a sick kitty. Whole nother story for a whole nother day. But school, I've been doing some writing. So like I've been trying to keep myself busy. So that's been fun. Beyond that, like I've just been, I don't know, just not really doing anything extra. Gardening is obviously done because it's fall, right? Which I'm kind of sad about. I really miss putzing around in my plants, as you know, right?
Yeah.
But no, I've been doing pretty well, and it's good to be back. It's good to be back.
I know, I missed you.
I've missed you too. But so, well, we're gonna thinking about current events. We're gonna keep the current event snapshot brief tonight, mostly because we're kind of just we're wanting to just focus on our return, having a good conversation, and there's like a lot of heaviness in the air because we're so close to the election. But I will say, the election is on Tuesday. Please make sure that you vote. Use your voice, okay? And exercise that power, okay? Did you want to add anything on that?
Yeah, there's, I've already voted. I did early voting. There's early voting in Michigan. Definitely go vote. But we here are just kind of making a safe space tonight. So we're just going to like create that boundary and just like not talk about politics here tonight. I think that we just kind of want to create that separation. So I think that's kind of healthy.
And
But
like I'm hoping that in doing so too, we are encouraging people because like I know like some people like they have like families where they're like dealing with a lot of stuff, right? Especially political divisions. Like sometimes you do have to create those boundaries for yourself. And there's no shame in doing so because again, that's something that people will often shame about. They'll be like, "Oh, well, you don't want to talk about it." No, like we're creating a healthy boundary and that's completely acceptable. Right. So, but we still wanted to make sure that you were aware that the election is on the horizon and that you do what you can do, to partake in that. Well, it's the show mission statement tonight. Oh, let's see. I'm checking out the comments first. Wendy's plus Wednesday would make a great crossover horror film. I don't know. I've not surprisingly not been watching a lot of horror films lately. So
yeah.
I've actually kind of had like a rom-com kind of Halloween season. So anyway, Rogue Agent, it's good to see you. Ari, would you like to do the show mission statement tonight?
I would, if you're ready.
I am ready.
Okay. We live in a dynamic society where social media shapes us by creating greater opportunities for connection. It has led to a developing understanding of the adversity many marginalized communities face, the powers causing the adversity, and those who act as bystanders as atrocities take place in real time. Our goal with this show is to make connections and have challenging conversations about social topics, current events, pop culture, and art. Together, let's weave the threads of understanding with what privilege we have in order to learn, educate, and create in a world that's growing.
Well, and speaking of that, like I mean, we mention this all the time whenever we do the mission statement. We always try to apply it to the topic, right? And I think that because we started out the episode talking about mental health, tonight's topic very much kind of follows suit with that, right? So I guess Ari, like when it like because like this was kind of your vision of a topic to create. So like, what was your vision for it? Like forgiving is important.
So yeah, so we've been talking a lot about like different topics, and one of the things that I had really talked about the last couple weeks was, I've been doing a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy. And one of the biggest things in cognitive behavioral therapy is about like forgiveness. And so it's like about forgiving other people, but also like forgiving yourself. And I really think that, yeah, like especially during like this season, you have like a lot of like horror and like darkness and all of this like grotesqueness and
Mhm.
mire, and like people like seeking revenge, and like people out to go destroy the villain
Mhm.
and things like that. um a lot of retribution and things like that. You think about like horror films, you
Yeah.
think like Carrie or something like that, movies
Ooh,
like
yeah, that's a
Carrie.
good one.
You think like Carrie goes out and she gets the big revenge. You
Mhm.
think like, oh yeah, like she got her revenge against all of those people who wronged her and things like that.
Mhm.
Um, but that doesn't work in the real world. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like, it's definitely something that flourishes more so in a fantasy world than it does in reality. And no, I think that that's so important because I feel like sometimes we do get swept up in, like, at least internally, I do sometimes, where like somebody might wrong me and I will dwell and dwell and dwell on it to the point where it's kind of compromising myself too, right?
And I think that that's something that we've been doing like a lot, or not. Well, I would speak for myself. I think that in the past few episodes, I've been dwelling a lot about like my exes and things like that, and I've been dwelling a lot about like past wrongs and past hurts and things like that.
Mhm.
That I've been dwelling about like a lot of things that have happened to me, and I think that I wanted to like work on the forgiving part of the past, to
Mhm.
like try and move on from those things that had happened, to try to like move past those things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's interesting. Um, I think sometimes we really, I mean, those are moments that are really defining for us too, right? Like, obviously, I tend to really gravitate towards things that happen in college. We met in college, so we saw a lot of the things that we went through, right? And I don't think at that time in our lives we had like the emotional capacity to, or the emotional self-awareness maybe, to kind of successfully unpack, the relationships that we had, the friendships that we had, the failed friendships, so on and so forth. And in many ways, speaking for myself, like, I didn't start realizing how much I kind of dwelled on certain things or like internalized certain things until I
Mm-hmm.
started having therapy. And therapy helped me make the discovery that I harbor a lot that really I don't need to harbor. And a lot
Mm-hmm.
of it is like that self blame for allowing myself to be in situations or whatever. I will never forget. So I had a dream probably a couple of weeks ago that was a little triggering for me. I had a dream that I like publicly humiliated myself in college. Like, and it was very close to something that had happened to me. And I remember
Oh.
waking up being like, Donnie, that was so stupid. Like, why did you do that? Why did you do that 15 years ago? And after I processed that, I was just like, why am I mad at myself for a subtle embarrassment that I had 15 years ago when I was in college, when I really didn't need to do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I felt like I was kind of sabotaging myself in a way.
Yeah.
Have you ever done that before?
Sabotaging yourself.
Well, like, I mean, over like maybe something from a long time ago where you're like, oh, I did that thing. Like, why did I do that thing?
Yeah, there's always that thing that you wake up in the middle of the night and you're like, oh, I remember this thing from years ago, and you think about it and you're like, oh, there's that thing that I remember from
Hmm.
Death Valley, where I'm like, I was speaking French and I said vegetable instead of legume. And I'm like,
Oh,
I
yeah.
still haven't forgiven myself about that. I'm still working on forgiving myself for that. Um, but
Oh.
those little embarrassments that you think about every so often.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I know for me, like, like honing in on moments like that, like those are the things that I like. I don't know, like I used to dwell on those things a lot, and then I'd think of them as like self-defining when I realized that like that thing that nobody probably remembers other than myself it doesn't really need to define me, right? Easier said than done. Like when you're in like a certain headspace, like it's not always easy to rationalize that way, but like knowing there is an end to that feeling, I think is nice to know, right?
Yeah.
Knowing that you can work through that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see some comments here. RP struggles with forgiving themselves sometimes and agonizing over things. Rogue Agent mentions serious trust issues if anyone says you should forgive. But like Queen Elsa said, oh, I love a good Frozen reference. Don't you see? I can. How fitting, right?
Right.
Yeah. So I guess like what are some other ways that we have been unforgiving of ourselves over the years? Or of others?
Ways I've been unforgiving of myself. So I have been unforgiving of myself. Really, I think that I tend to blame myself for a lot of things, just little things, and sometimes big things.
Mm-hmm.
That you know, I've been through like narcissistic abuse with my mother, and I have dealt with that over the years. And you know, blaming myself for things that necessarily weren't my fault. I've dealt with a lot of, you know, trust issues with that. And you know, I've been trying to forgive myself for the way that past relationships have gone, and I've, you know, blamed myself for those things.
Yeah.
So
now that's I mean that's powerful to reflect on too, right?
yeah.
Because especially when
Mm-hmm.
it comes to narcissistic people, because like they do have a power themselves where it kind of becomes like a cycle, right?
It does,
Um,
yeah.
like I know for me, I often think back on my grandmother who was very narcissistic and abusive, and sometimes like I don't forgive myself over not being able to respond to her in the way that I wanted to respond to her that like stood up for myself, right? But then
Yeah.
like in my therapy work, my therapist has been like, well, like you can't really argue with a narcissist because it's just going to kind of implode on itself. So really, what do you hope to kind of like gain through it? So then she started kind of teaching me about like boundaries and like, you know, like you didn't know this when you were a kid, obviously, but now that you're an adult, you can create like these healthy boundaries with people
Mm-hmm.
where even if it's a narcissist, you can be like, nope, detaching from that, not dealing with it, or not like
Mm-hmm.
responding to it. I guess that's what I should say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. RP says I agonize over things that I've done too. Oh, okay, Rogue, that's what you meant. And then RP says I can forgive others mostly, but I struggle most with forgiving myself. One thing is something that Donnie knows about. Yes. Majin Spirit says Happy Halloween. Hello, Majin Spirit. It's good to see you.
Hello.
It's good to see you. No, like I think it's I know for me, like I would get frustrated over it. I would be like, why can't I just get to the point I need to be to forgive myself? But then like realizing that it's something that takes time and practice, like that, like I felt a lot better after making that realization, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think we have like this unrealistic expectations of ourselves of like, do it now.
It's such a process, you know, like it's not something that just happens like overnight. It's something that you have to like, you know, forgiving yourself is not something that you do like, you know, it's like it's done. It's yeah, I've forgiven myself, you know, I've done it. It's happened.
Mm-hmm.
It's there. it's something that, you work on, and
Yeah.
you don't do it just with the once. You have to do it over and over again, like figuring it out, as a process.
It's tied to healing, right? And I think what
Mhm.
many don't often realize, and I've made this self-discovery too, is that healing isn't always linear, right?
Mhm.
Like, you will take 2 steps forward, and then you'll take a step back, and then you'll kind of agonize over it and be like, "Oh my god, why like, what's happened to my momentum?" But it's like, that's the nature of healing, and
Yeah.
forgiveness, like, whether it's forgiving yourself or other people, like, that's, you know, part of that. Now regarding, how have we been unforgiving of others, like, I think for me, that's where, like, that college thing comes in because, like, I remember, like, in college, like, I had a really hard time, like, cultivating friendships because, like, something would happen, there would be a miscommunication, and then I would kind of, like, harbor a resentment and, like, not forgive those people when it really was just something as simple as a miscommunication, right?
Yeah.
Has that ever, like, what is your take on that? Like, being unforgiving of others?
Um, like I said, with my exes, I don't know, like, especially with like my last ex, I just have like harbored this resentment over it. And I just like, why did we break up? And like, why did it have to happen like that? And I'm just like, I don't, I just need to like let go, and I need to be
Mhm.
free, and I need to forgive myself about what happened, and I need to forgive him, and I need to like forgive the situation, and I just need to move on.
Yeah. I think so. I'm glad that you mentioned that because I think that's gonna allow us to transition into our next question, which is, why is it important to forgive ourselves and others? And I think it is that letting go, right? You
Mhm.
I know I'm referencing therapy a lot today, but the therapist is largely responsible for helping steer me in the right direction, right?
Mhm.
But she one day, like, we had a session and I was kind of like dwelling, like what I do best. And she was like, "Donnie, I want you to think about the amount of energy that you invest in dwelling on that thing that happened." Right? And I really I don't think I ever thought about it that way. And once I did kind of piece that together, I was like, wow. Like, I do invest so much energy in that one thing that I could be putting towards something else, like myself, right? That self-healing. And I think once I made that connection, I was just like, whoop, okay. That
Yeah.
completely changed it.
I definitely do ruminate about the past, myself personally. And it's something that I do work on. It's something that is a problem,
Hmm.
but, working on that healing process.
Yeah. Yeah. Kaijutopia. Happy Halloween as well. It's good to see you. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're doing well. Um, no, so I think once I made that realization that, like, it did feel like a pretty significant weight lifted off me. Now, don't get me wrong, like, because I'm so used to that dwelling, sometimes I kind of go back to it, you know. So, yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, but hey, again, like you were saying, it is a constant process. You gotta always be vigilant with it.
Mhm.
And honestly, rogue agent, like, I don't know your experience, but like, I definitely kind of was in that headspace before. But I think once I started, taking those measures that were best for me, like, I started seeing that light at a certain distance where I was just like, okay, like, I can see that weight lifting. There is a certain degree of forgiveness that I can harbor for myself, right? That really mattered. So,
Because
um,
forgiving doesn't mean forgetting. And I think that people forget that that, it
Yeah.
doesn't mean that you have forgotten what they've done to you. It doesn't mean that you letting go and forgiving them. And it doesn't mean that you let them back into your life. It doesn't mean that you let
Mhm.
them hurt you again. It doesn't
Yeah.
mean.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Oh, Rogue says it has something to do with the church. Okay. Okay. Well, obviously, we're trying to keep things on the up and up tonight, so I don't expect you to like divulge anything that's personal or anything like that. But take your journey at your pace. That's really all you can do, right? So I would just recommend like don't lose yourself in that, but like take that at your pace, at what's best for you. But I do like Ari. I think it's important that you mention like, you don't forget, right? Because I think that there is like kind of like this unrealistic expectation that society sets where I think society is like, well, once you do forgive, like then you just clean slate, right? I don't really think that's realistic. I don't really think one can completely forget about like actions because like we do have to develop this process for protecting ourselves and ensuring our own well-being. And that's, I think, part of why I don't know, I think that's part of why we really just keep that in the back of our minds when we have to. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
that
Because it's
does
for
make sense.
protection. It's for protection. It's for making sure that we're okay. So,
Yeah.
I guess, I mean, looking at it, because we like to look at the long run, right? Because that's what we do. Why do you think it's, well, like, I guess, what do you think the journey looks like from here when it comes to that forgiveness?
What does the journey look like? Well, it's a personal journey. It really is. It's about finding your own path as far as it goes. Because we have people on their own journeys, whether or not they are, because again, like I'm on a journey of trying to find forgiveness for all of these past hurts. And I,
Mm-hmm.
I, I would be a hypocrite if I said that I have completely forgiven everybody and everything, and that
Mm-hmm.
that
Yeah.
it's all worked out, and that, I've figured it out. Um, I'm working on it. It's a process. It's not something that is easy, or something that you can do overnight, that it's like easily fixable, or that it's something that you do with, you know you do right away, or do, you know with grace and, kindness and love. It's not like all sunshine and roses. It's
My
something that
God.
can be very, very hard, I think.
It's funny. We like to paint it like it's my wig is pissing me off, if you could not tell. We make it seem like it's sunshine and roses, I think, because society conditions us to do that, right?
Yeah,
Like, ooh, I'm really giving some like what
you're looking so good.
Joan Jett vibes right now.
I'm loving it.
Ooh, do I look like a rocker gal?
You do.
This hat is so ridiculously heavy. It's heavier than the dwelling that I used to impose upon myself. That was a
I
bad
see you
joke.
struggling with it. Are you okay?
Oh, I'm good. I'm good. It's giving me some much needed neck exercising.
Oh, okay.
Do you ever exercise? I know I sometimes exercise my neck. Oh, not with a breastplate on though.
Oh
Oh,
goodness. I just cracked my neck. Oh,
oh.
here we go.
Did you hear that? Flop. I am so warm under my breastplate. Sorry. Nobody needs
I
to know
think
that
we needed
information.
this. I think we needed a break from this conversation. It was getting heavy.
I know. I need to forgive myself for making the decision to wear a breastplate.
Goodness.
I think so. See, that's, I don't know, like especially when we're at a vulnerable point, I think it's important to allow ourselves that grace. Like you mentioned that keyword there, grace. Because things do get really damn heavy.
They do.
Right?
They
What do
get
you
so.
do? What do you do when things get too heavy? What do you do for yourself in your own time, Ari?
When things get too heavy, when you're just walk away. Just walk away from the situation and just be like, I need a break. I need a break from you, from this, from all of, and just be like, I'm gonna put my music on. I'm gonna go for a walk. Hopefully not get hit by a car.
We
Did you watch
no,
the
we
new
don't
Lady
need
Gaga
that.
video? Did you watch the new Lady Gaga video, Disease?
Oh, you know I did. Oh, I stayed up till midnight. I stayed up till midnight to watch that thing drop because you know she's my queen. Yeah, we don't want to be hit like a car like she was in that.
I'm just like, oh God, please. I just cannot get it. I was just like, oh God, now I don't want to go walking outside.
Right. Hi, Rogue. I think I did receive it. I apologize. I've had so much on my plate. It's been really hard, like responding to individual requests for art and writing and stuff lately. Probably around Christmas break is when I will be more available for sure, which is late December for me. But no, like I do something very similar. Like when things get too heavy for me, I think that detachment is important, right? Like you have to like remove yourself from a situation. You have to like just allow the loudness of everything around you to just fall away. That's the big thing for me. Like especially like I get very vulnerable when there's so many things happening at once.
Yeah.
And truthfully most of the stuff is stuff that I impose on myself for work, volunteering and creative stuff. But once I step away and I'm just like allow myself to retreat a little bit, oh my goodness, it's like you bounce back at a certain point, right? I think that's probably why I enjoy gardening so much too, is like in the summertime, like that's kind of like my little oasis, like where I'm able to remove myself from the hullabaloo of things and be like, plants.
I think it's that ambivert tendency, like that extrovert tendency of like going out and doing things, and then like the introvert tendency of like, I need alone time to like free.
Right. No, it's so
Yeah.
true. It's so true. Because I think we really should do another part, like a part 2 to the ambivert episode, because I feel like we could talk so much more about it since it's been a few years, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I do realize that in my ambivert tendencies, I have a certain threshold, right? And I think it's because there is the societal expectation of you have to put yourself out there, you have to be extroverted, you have to, you can't be a shut-in. And I have like this, I have these moments where I'm like, I want to be a shut-in.
Can't I be a shut-in? Can't I be a little wicked witch in my little castle with my flying
Can I be a
monkeys?
gothy cottagecore garden witch in my little house with my little kitties, just rotting in my bed while I watch reality television? That's kind of the dream. It's so funny because I feel like speaking of dreams, when I was like a teenager, like I had dreams, like drastically different dreams, right? I had like this dream of like, I want exposure and I like want to put myself out there. And now I'm just like, I want to just sit down. I want to take a nap. I want to just snuggle a cat. That's all I want to do. I want to hang out with you. I want to talk about fun things. That's all I want to
Yeah.
do.
Do you think it's because you've reached a lot of your dreams, or is it because or is it because you that you feel satisfied with your life now?
I think it's probably a bit of both. Like, there's some dreams that I reached, but I think also, I don't know, like, I feel like when I was younger, there's like a certain amount of pressure that I think we put on ourselves regarding dreams.
Mm-hmm.
Because we have like an older generation telling us, like, you know, jump for the moon and you might land in the stars, kind of a cliche, right? And it's like, you know, maybe I just want to stargaze. Maybe I just want to take a picture of a star. Do I need to jump into them? Does that make sense?
I still want to jump in the stars.
I have moments where I do. I do. I would be lying if I said I didn't have moments if I did, that I didn't want to do that still. But I think that I feel a little bit. I don't necessarily want to say grounded, but like now I'm more selective about when the jumping takes place.
Yeah.
Whereas before, like it was kind of like a every time a leaf fell, I'd jump for that moon.
Yeah.
It sounds overly dramatic, but hey, it's
No, no, that's not dramatic at all. I think that I used to have a lot of unadulterated bliss, I think, in my life.
oh, that's a good way of putting it.
And I
Explain
think
what you
that
mean by that.
I just, I had a lot of, I think it was mania. I think that it was unmedicated mania. Um, but it was considered bliss. But now I'm like more even now. I think that's what
Yeah.
it is.
Hmm.
So it's more of like I I have bliss, but it's more contentment now.
Contentment. So contentment is kind of like a more refined bliss,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah, it's like um because you know I've always talked about mundane moments. You know,
Hmm.
that's something I've always talked about on my YouTube channel.
Hmm.
Um and like, you know, I talked about like the pleasure of just everyday life of finding yourself in not the average, but just going for a walk
Hmm.
or watching a tree or you know, for me it's like being connected to everything.
Hmm. I really resonate with that. I had a moment like that today, actually, while we were driving. I was just like looking at trees, and I was just like, life must be really like just simple and straightforward being a tree. Like that would be nice, right? You know, it's interesting. Like, I think for me, like, when I was younger, for me, it was probably unmedicated mania too, as far as I'm aware, you know, bipolar, woo. But I think it was also like this oddly conceited main character syndrome that I used to have.
Mm.
Not that I still don't have it. I think I still am kind of main character syndrome. That's kind of why I'm writing a book about that, right?
Well, to me, you're the main character.
Oh, to me, you're the main character. Are you kidding me?
Oh, no, I'm just a side character in your story.
You know, no, this story has double top billing. We're both the main characters.
Oh, well, that's very nice of you to say.
Many stories have two main characters, right?
Right.
Um, but no, like I had like this thing where like I would just I think I would pan out too far and just like see myself in the space and kind of like view my role in it as being larger than life. But then I would like reality would hit and I'd be like, why am I doing that? Like I just exist in the space, Donnie. Like it's fine to exist in the space and not have to be on the outside or like kind of impose that on yourself, right?
Yeah. But I think like coming back to the topic, like forgiving yourself is saying that it's okay whatever happens, you know,
Mm-hmm.
like having life come at you in any way that it does and forgiving the past is like allowing life to unfold as it does.
Mm-hmm. without kind of like making this assumption that we need to control every little thing, you
Yeah.
know? I think that was part of my problem too. I kind of felt like I don't want to. I keep kind of gravitating to the word conceit, but I don't know if that is the right word. Maybe I'll think of a better word. But like I had like this perspective that I needed to control every moment, and that was going to really define the person that I became. And I had like this very specific vision of that. Do I think I am the person I imagined I would be when I was a teenager? I don't think so. No. Because I think when we're at that age, we have like this inflated sense of ego, right?
Yeah.
To a certain extent. Do I think younger me would look at me now and be like, oh, I guess that's not too bad? Maybe. I don't know. They might look at me 15 years later and be like, why is he wearing a wig and a breastplate on a live stream? I don't know. But hey, why not?
I think 15-year-old me would look at me and go, "You're weird." And be like, "You're weird."
But do you remember though, like we always felt so hyper conscious of being weird at that time.
Yeah.
And now I'm kind of like owning it. I'm like, yeah, I am wearing a wig and a breastplate and arm fishnets. I am absolutely weird, and that's fine.
Yeah.
It's
The thing
it's
about it
okay.
is that even as teenagers, we were weird. Like being a teenager, like yeah, I was weird as a teenager and I'm weird as an adult. And like being alive, the act of being alive is kind of a strange experience.
Kind of, yeah. Well, and I also think that maybe that's one thing I also didn't forgive people for a long time. Okay, bringing it back to the topic. Like, I think especially in high school and college, I would feign had to have this ignorance of being in control of everything, but I was really allowing everybody else to define things for me. Like,
Yeah.
they would define what weirdness was, which is why I would feel ashamed as a result of the weirdness,
Yeah.
right? They would define like what it meant to have like social capital, or they would define what it would mean to be like in the in crowd. And I think I mentioned this a few episodes ago, like I would do so much to kind of compromise myself in order to fit those molds. And now I'm kind of at this point where I have forgiven those people for kind of like infusing that perception, but I've also forgiven myself for buying into it. Does
Yeah.
that make sense? I don't know if that makes sense.
Because even the most normal people are still strange in their own ways. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And like, because what is normal? What is strange? What is,
Mm-hmm.
what is anything? These
Well,
are
and
all
yeah,
relative experiences.
well, and yeah, like I think I would argue that, and some people might disagree with me, especially regarding myself, but I would argue that we've reached a point in our lives where we are pretty self-aware. We know what works for us. We know who we are. We know what doesn't work, right? And I think that we've developed the capability to create our own definition of weird and to find comfort in it. What
Yeah.
is your what is do you disagree with that? You're like,
No,
oh,
I'm so excited. I'm just so excited to, yeah, I just,
to
that
nerd
makes
out
me
with
happy.
me?
Yeah, that makes me happy because I don't know. I would say that I'm a pretty boring person, but I'm also like, in certain ways I am pretty like strange because I am a single childless cat lady, and that kind of is weird in its own way. Oh goodness, I
You
said the
are?
words. I
How
know.
dare you? I'm kidding.
I've been seeing so many babies lately. It's crazy.
God. Oh, no, so no, I find comfort in that though too. Like I mean, think about your YouTube channel name, Strange Nothing. It's like you've owned it. And I think that's what I love. And, you know, I think that's one thing that really drew me to you, even way back in college, is like there is this degree of freedom that you have inside about how you represent yourself, about like the way you view the world that I've always really appreciated. And I think that that's kind of, I know at that time that really kind of helped me start unlocking some things about letting go and about like not being afraid to put myself out there to a certain extent, right? Because before the whole YouTube thing happened, I would have never even fathomed sitting in front of a camera and talking to people because public speaking was literally terrifying to me. Horrifying. And it's all because I was afraid of public humiliation and being like, "Oh, Donnie, what are you going to do now? How are you going to make a fool of yourself?" And I'm just like, I'm okay making a fool of myself as long as I look good doing it.
That's okay. I'll make a fool of myself. I, generally do anytime.
Oh. But you know what? It's art for us at this point.
Yeah.
The art of making a fool of ourselves.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, I think sometimes it can be heavy and hard, right? But I think other times it can be kind of freeing too. You know, have you ever felt that?
I guess so.
You guess so?
It's just inevitable. It's just inevitable at this point.
But, you know, I think also it's about how we bounce back from it too, right? How
I guess
we,
so.
like, if it is something that is difficult, like, the journey coming back from it is significant.
I think that part of it is just like self-sabotage,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, like, explain, like, do you mean, like, in the sense of, like, you do something that maybe, like, other people perceive as foolish, but then you kind of buy into that mentality,
Yeah,
and that kind of is a
it's
self-sabotage?
sort of like, when you fail, it's because people expected you to fail, so then you just always fail anyway.
Mhm.
And so then you have to like forgive yourself because it's like, you self-sabotage because like people are just like, well, they're riding high, so then like they're gonna, they've reached the top of the mountain, so they're just gonna fall off the mountain. And
Mhm.
so then you do fall off the mountain and it's like, I know, gotcha.
Like the "I told you so" kind of thing? Or
Yeah.
you know, it's I'm glad that you mentioned that because I do feel like part of that struggle that I used to have with forgiving would be forgiving those people who actively wanted me to fail
Hmm.
or who actively anticipated it, right?
Yeah.
And now, like, I feel like I've learned the vital lesson, and I think therapy has helped me with this, the vital lesson of you learn the most about people at two junctures. You learn the most about people when you are at your highest, and you learn the most about people around you when you're at your lowest,
Hmm.
right? How do people treat you? How do they respond? And I do sometimes get really self-conscious still about like failures and like I kind of have like this mentality where I'm like, well, there's somebody out there just waiting for me to do so, right?
Yeah.
Um, but then I also think about like, but we're human. You know, I want to be a different person to them when they fail than how they are to me. Does that make sense?
Hmm.
I don't know if I'm successful at that or not, but
Well, you've always been a good friend to me when I've failed and when I've been at my lowest. So, you know.
um, well, you have been to me too. Honestly, Ari and I have mentioned this many times. I feel like we're more family than just friends these days.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, our friendship has been like over a decade long when you think about it.
Yeah.
Um, and I genuinely do feel like, especially with the show, like it's helped me grow a lot as a person. Like I feel like it's helped me make sense of my vulnerabilities in a way, and which is why I've really appreciated. It's kind of wild to think we began it in 2020 thinking it was just going to be about social issues, and it still is sometimes. But I also think now that it's more than that. I think it's an extension of who we are as individuals.
Oh, I don't know about. Yeah, well, I don't know. It's definitely a hangout for us.
Right, right. It's literally like well, I hope people think this. I don't know. I'm hoping it's like people are sitting down and having a cup of tea with us and just being like, "Oh, Donnie and Ari are going to shoot the shit again. Here we go."
I think it's a not a it's an extension of a regular part of our scheduled week, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so too. Oh, so some comments. RP loves Gaga's new song, as one should, right? RP says I've always been weird. Kaiju Gugu is here. A lot of like Godzilla people are tuning in for the show tonight. It's good to see all of you. That makes me happy. Good. So we do have a couple more discussion questions before we wrap things up for the evening. It's kind of hard to believe we're nearing the end already. So I guess I mean if we think about like revenge, because I know we wanted to talk a little bit about like why that's not always a good thing, right?
Yeah.
So why is revenge a bad idea, and how have other people used revenge throughout history to show that revenge can work, but how does it really work in reality?
So we talked about Carrie. Right?
Oh, good old
Carrie.
Carrie.
It worked in Fantasyland. Carrie goes to the ball and she gets revenge on everybody and does all of her psychic killings and destroys everybody, and she's the villain. We also have the Count of Monte Cristo.
Yes, which is absolutely about like the
Revenge.
complexities of revenge. And I think in the back room, didn't I mention Moby Dick as well? Like that's another piece of classic literature that's like very revenge centric.
But doesn't it end up destroying Ahab to get revenge?
Yes.
On the whale?
Well, and it's interesting because if we look at literature, because Ari and I love nerding out about literature. If you look at all of these different pieces of media or literature, the end result of revenge is not fulfillment. It's usually like you're either sacrificing yourself or you sacrifice the people around you, you sacrifice your situation. So it kind of turns into like this cruel, unfulfilling cycle, right? Now connecting that to what we've been talking about, interestingly, I like, especially those who wronged me in the past, like I would always kind of like commit to myself, well, like they will get what they put out. Karma will come back and bite them in the butt, right? And like I would get a lot of comfort from that, but then I would kind of feel like this sense of hollowness from thinking that. I'd be like, Donnie, like, what are you doing? So not like I think about that less now, but I just think about like, hey, at some point they will realize the humanizing factor here. I may not be the one to teach them that, but like somewhere along their journey, hopefully they will come across that. I don't know if that makes sense, but
yeah.
So I don't know. Like when you see revenge in media, like what is your reaction to it?
Well, I don't know. So I'm just going to tell you a story here, and
Do it.
Feel free to follow me down a crazy path here.
I love a wormhole. Take us down the wormhole.
So in my delusion, because I have delusions about David Lynch. Yes, you know this, right? About me. So in my delusion, I thought I was getting revenge against David Lynch recently. So I got revenge against David Lynch, so to speak. And it was not very fulfilling for me.
Interesting. So what was kind of like the takeaway from it, like in that realization?
That it's not worth it in the end. That it doesn't make you happier or wealthier or wiser. It just makes you bitter.
Yeah. Well, and it reminds me of what we talked about earlier. It's like you're like siphoning and directing energy into something where you
Mhm.
don't really know what the result will be, right?
Right.
You don't know if that result will be a fulfillment. So there's like a risk of that, being like and then like I think another thing is there's a certain for in my experience when I've had moments like that, and maybe like I watched someone get what's due, like karma, like got even or whatever. Like I found that wasn't fulfilling either, and I'd be like, why
Yeah.
do I feel hollow still as a result? Like maybe was it was putting energy into that like necessary then?
Yeah.
You know,
And I think
interesting.
that's part of the like forgiving myself because David Lynch doesn't know I exist. So none of this has anything to do with him. It all has to do with me. It's
Hmm.
about forgiving myself, about forgiving my
Right.
situation, forgiving everything that I've done about my situation. He doesn't know I exist. Yeah, I don't
Well,
exist in his universe.
so you've gotten to the point where you were unpacking like that mental health layer to it and the
Yeah.
complexity to all of it.
Yeah.
And I know for me, like I've unpacked the fact that the way that I dwell is a projection. Like I am projecting what really isn't the actual reality of the situation, right?
Mhm.
Like the person that did whatever thing to me 15 years ago probably doesn't even remember that. They probably don't even remember me. They probably don't remember the time I stumbled and fell down the stairs in Ann Spa Hall
Yeah.
in college. So why should we put energy into that then, right? And I feel like the fact that you and I have gotten to a point where we're able to ask ourselves that, that's phenomenal momentum. How do you feel about that?
Um you just got to keep forgiving yourself and just work on it and just it's going to be a process, again, like because you're going to like come up again and just
Mhm.
and it's going to be something that you're going to feel, but you just have to keep forgiving yourself for the past.
Yeah.
And it's going to be something that might come back and you feel that regret again or that guilt, and so you have to kind of give yourself those affirmations that it's the past and you have to let it go.
Yeah. Like it's the like I would ask myself like, Donnie, it's the past. Why are you investing in this emotionally, psychically? I would ask myself like, Donnie, how does that define you now? And then my answer would be like, it doesn't. Like it has no power over me.
Right.
Right. And if there are vulnerable moments where it does, I think that the challenging part is getting to the point of realizing that like I can grant myself the grace if I do take a step backward as opposed to expecting steps forward, right? Like if you take a step back, it's fine. Like yeah, you might have to regroup. Yeah, you might kind of have to refortify yourself or rebuild yourself a little bit, but you'll get where you need to be. Especially if you have people around you who are aware of it and who know how to kind of be of support but not like define or dictate the support, right?
Mhm.
Oh, I'm nerding out.
I love it.
I love it too. So before we end today, what are our plans for the rest of the week and the weekend?
Oh my goodness. Goodness, what am I going to do this weekend? uh I think that I was going to work. Well, I did finish my book. Did I not mention this? I
Your
finished
book.
writing my I did finish writing my book, Transcendence, and I was going to work on typing that up. I also have, because it's November and I'm off from school right now, um, I am going to work on reading because I was reading some books. Um, and I just finished one book by China Miéville and Keanu Reeves called The Book of Elsewhere. I just finished that.
Oh, I've heard of
And I
that.
was
Was it good?
it was all right. It
It was all
was a little
right.
weird.
Oh, I mean, that sounds like a productive weekend in store, though. Are you going to do NaNoWriMo now that it's almost November?
I am not doing NaNoWriMo.
Not doing it. I always pronounce it wrong, NaNoWriMo. No, I'm not. I was going to do it, but I'm like, I'm going to probably catch up on my October stuff since I am substantially behind on that. Hopefully, I can bippity boppity boo that into existence. So, I don't. Why am I saying bippity boppity boo? The fairy godmother was not a witch. What
I
is
love
wrong
it.
with me?
I love it.
Oh my
Can you be
goodness.
my fairy godmother, Donny? Will you be my fairy godmother?
Well, I'm already a fairy. I suppose I might as well be your godmother too.
Ah.
My friends, we love you so much, and we're so happy to be back. And um, grant yourselves grace. Okay, forgive yourselves. Don't don't allow don't allow those things to like take all of your energy from you, right? And we've learned that the hard way, right? I mean, every situation's different, but Ari, your final thoughts.
Keep on trucking.
Keep on trucking. Don't forget to click like, subscribe to our channel, subscribe to Ari's channels, Strange Nothings and Bucha Baby. And don't forget to keep standing tall, and we will see you on the flip side. Bye, friends. Have a good night.